at this point, everyone's hand coloring looks really good. But now we need a little bit of work with selecting colors. And I know it's really tricky because when you select an area and you go to pick a color, you're like, that's going to look great. But then you apply the layer blend and things change. So there's like three objects that I've noticed most people really struggle with. So the first thing I want to suggest is looking up photos of the object in color. So obviously grass, trees, all of that kind of stuff existed way back when. So for example, I looked up a few different things, but in my one tree with palm trees, I looked up Florida palm trees. And what I suggest doing is like shrinking your page like this so you could compare it while you're coloring. And you find like a palm tree that you really like something like that. So you can match it to what you have here. So especially with grass, I feel like people tend to make it more of like a Christmas tree, cartoony kind of green. And it's not very accurate. So the big point I'm trying to make is that when we go to color in a lot of the like greenery, shrubs, grass, stuff like that, it's a lot more like on this rainbow in the lime, almost yellow area than it is up here. Most people think we're like looking at that, but it's definitely not as realistic. We want to go to a part that's a little bit more of like a lime green and then make it darker. And that's going to be a lot more realistic, whether it's tropical or like in someone's backyard. Thank you. So keep that in mind when we're picking out things like for trees, shrubbery, stuff like that. Any questions about green selections? Alrighty. Let's do water next. Okay. Water, so tricky. And it looks different depending on like the weather too. So based on like what the whiteness of this background here, how do you think the weather is here? If it's pure white, it's going to be kind of gluty, like cloudy, like gloomy, cloudy, like an overcast day where it's still bright outside, but the sky is just covered in white clouds. Okay. So this I find people get super confused with. It's hard to pick out something for water. So I was looking up like the Hudson River. Let's use that since we're probably most familiar with it. So I tried looking up boat on Hudson River because otherwise these are like the pretty aerial photos. Oh, some of these are a little tragic. But as you can see, the water really isn't blue in most cases unless you're on a beautiful tropical island. So it's hard to say, but like in this situation here, what color are you seeing more if there's a blue sky? Yeah, it's got like a greenish tone, right? I completely agree with you. It's like a greenish gray, a little bit of brown in there. And look, this is a part that looks like it's, you're not near the city. So even like if you think about going to like a beach near New Jersey or in New Jersey, like usually the water is not like that beautiful, stunning blue because of the sand underneath usually isn't that deep. It makes the water look a little bit more brown. Okay. So let's look for a picture that's not tragic here. But you could see overall, even in something like this, the photo of like the blue water is really like on the gray side. And that's a nice sky there too. So the point I'm trying to make is unless it's like beautifully retouched like this, where they made the water really blue, you're probably not going to have that really stunning blue water for anyone. Okay. Same here. So that's another thing we want to keep in mind when we're picking out our water. Tricky. Select. Solid color. So a lot of people are like, oh, this seems logical, like blue. And you get that like really, it's a pretty blue, but it's like more of a type of blue I'd wear on a sweatshirt, not really the type of water I'd see, even on like a beautiful island. Okay. So we want to go with something that's like definitely more muted. And I know that can be tricky to find. I'm actually going to go more that kind of purpley realm. We can go down here more to the green. So even something like that where I know it looks like subtle, but it's really light. And I could even go in there with like another layer and possibly put some like brown on top of it too. So I know you're looking at that navy blue like, okay, that seems insane, but it does make sense. Any questions so far? Okay, one more, then I leave you alone, I promise. So, people, this one tends to be the trickiest. Regardless of the person's skin tone, it's really complex. So, my best suggestion for people is to fill in all the other colors first and save their skin for the end, because sometimes people look really, really like grayish, like they're ill, or they look really, really orangey, glowy, like they got a bad tan. So we need to find kind of a middle ground with that. Okay. So let's zoom in on one of these folks' faces. I'm going to go with this person here. Those two will deal with that. Okay. So I have a little hint for doing the faces because it's hard to pick a color. And regardless of the person's skin tone, you need to stay in the orange family, even though I know that sounds really silly. So here's what I usually recommend doing. You'll probably have a little file tab up here that says swatches. If not, you're going to go to window and just click swatches and it will pop up for you. So there's a lot of different, they're just like color palettes, a bunch of colors that they've pre-selected for you if you'd like to use them. But if you go down to the bottom where it says pale, they have a ton of different skin tones, not just pale ones, like everybody. And I find that these are like a really good starting point when you're trying to pick out a color. So watch me. Just drag my little window over and I'm going to pick, they look pretty fair. So I'm going to start like maybe with that. And let's try color. Ooh. Or overlay. I'm going to try overlay. But the good part is I know they look like crazy. But what I could do is I can go in and now I'm in the ballpark of getting a lot closer to an appropriate skin tone. You're never going to get the perfect one, but it's getting me closer to where I need to be. And that's going to help me out quite a bit. Okay. So perfection? No, but I'm getting a lot closer. And it will save you a lot of time in sieving the colors. Okay. Any questions coming to mind so far? Okay. So we don't meet on Monday. We'll still have Tuesday and Wednesday, I believe. So we've got lots of time to finish this up. And